Situational context is an important component of overall context, which is important to understand the meaning in pragmatics. Situational context includes the knowledge about the immediate context in which an interaction is happening. This could be a certain situation or the people involved in that situation. People do create a certain situational context sometimes in order to make their meanings understandable for others. For example, political leaders do use physical gestures and symbols and expressions during their speeches in order to create a situational context for their audience so that they may understand what the leader intends to convey. So the situational contexts are usually facilitated by the gestures or the expressions or various symbols which help us to convey our meanings more purposefully and clearly. In order to understand this further, you might have seen certain people making various gestures and expressions while talking on phone. This looks so funny sometimes. I mean, the listener with whom they're talking is probably quite away. He or she cannot see their gestures or expressions, but they still keep on making those gestures in form of changing their facial expressions or hand movements or head movement, or they keep on moving on their foot. So this, to an ordinary watcher, this looks quite funny. Why? Because the listener and the speaker do not share the same context, do not share the same situation. Had they been in the same situation, these gestures would have been interpreted differently and would have different meanings. So when we do not share the same situation, the communication would adopt different patterns. We can have a real situation, and at the same time we can also have an imaginary situation. Humans keep on thinking about various issues or various topics, various areas of concern during their daily life, during our official life even. We might be sitting in office and would be thinking about something coming next, about a domestic problem sometimes, or about an official issue which is being tackled or being dealt with at some other place. So our imaginary situation might be that situation about which we are thinking. Let me give you another and probably a clearer example. For example, we give different tasks to our students during classrooms. If a lecturer give his classroom a task of writing about a bank robbery, his students or her students would probably go to create an imaginary situation of a robbery at a bank, and only then they would be able to write about it. So the real situation in such a context would be of the classroom, but the imaginary situation would be of the robbery at a bank. And the student would construct their thoughts based on what, where, who, why, and how questions. Who did it, why it was done by them, and where it happened. So by looking into the details of all these questions, one can construct an imaginary situation. So the physical situation and imaginary situation can be different, and they both are important to be understood in order to construct meaning. Even when you are in your imagination and constructing some unreal situation or imaginary situation, you will have to keep in mind that in which physical or situational context you are sitting in. Your use of words, your choice of expressions while writing in a classroom would be different as compared to when you are talking about the same issue in a street. So both physical situation and the imaginary situation are important to the use of language and thereby to the construction of meanings in various situations. Situational context, roughly speaking, includes the environment, and this in this way also includes people, time, and behavior of the people involved. For example, if you want to borrow certain things from your friend, you will probably also uh, look into the mood of that person you want to borrow something. If he would be happy, so you would be more inclined to borrow something from him or her. But if he or she would be unhappy, you would probably be less inclined to ask something from that person. So, situational context may roughly be seen as the overall setting of a message or overall setting in which a message is constructed to convey certain meanings.